Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm really happy you're here today. Maybe you're drinking coffee, maybe you're on your way to work, or maybe you're lying in bed and telling yourself, I really need to improve my English. If that's you, I want you to know something. You're not alone. Today's topic is something almost every English learner struggles with. How can you train your brain to speak English naturally? Not just study English. Not just memorize grammar, but actually, I think in English. I used to ask myself this question all the time, and honestly, a small voice inside me would say, "You've been learning English for years. So why is speaking still so difficult?" That voice was annoying, but it wasn't completely wrong, because I knew grammar, I knew vocabulary, I could understand videos, I could read articles. But when someone suddenly asked, "How was your weekend?" everything inside my head became quiet, too quiet. And then another voice appeared. "Quick, say something, anything." But at the same time, a different voice whispered, "Wait, is your grammar correct? Should you use the past tense? What if you make a mistake? What if you sound strange?" Have you ever felt this? You know exactly what you want to say, but before speaking, your brain starts doing too many things. First, you think in your own language. Then, you translate it into English. Then, you check the grammar. Then, you wonder, is this natural? And after all that, the conversation is already over. I know this feeling very well, because I used to do this every single day. And honestly, it was exhausting. Not because English was too difficult, but because my brain never learned to use English directly. I was trying to solve every sentence instead of simply speaking. I remember one moment very clearly. Someone asked me, "What do you like to eat?" Such a simple question, but inside my head, there was chaos. A voice asked, "Should I say, I like eating?" Or, "I like to eat?" Another voice said, "What about articles? Should I say, a pizza?" Or simply, "Pizza?" And meanwhile, the other person was waiting, smiling politely, probably wondering, why is this taking so long? And do you know what I finally said? I smiled and answered, "I like food. Very safe. Very simple, and, honestly, a little embarrassing." But now, when I think back to that moment, I don't laugh at myself. I feel grateful, because that moment taught me something important. Speaking English is not only about knowledge, it's about training. It's about helping your brain become comfortable with English, little by little, day by day. I used to believe fluent people were special. Maybe they had better memories. Maybe they were naturally talented. Maybe their brains worked differently. But now, I think differently. I think fluency is not magic. It's a habit. It's thousands of tiny moments. One sentence while making coffee. One thought while walking home. One mistake that teaches you something. And then, another tiny moment. And another. Until one day, English doesn't feel like a school subject anymore. It feels like part of your life. And honestly, that's one of the most beautiful feelings in the world. Because suddenly, you stop translating. You stop fighting with grammar. You stop trying to be perfect. And you simply express yourself. Of course, that doesn't happen overnight. I know many learners want quick results. I understand. I feel impatient too. Sometimes a voice inside me still says, "Why am I not better yet?" And another voice quietly answers, "Because learning takes time." That second voice is wiser, because your brain needs repetition. It needs small daily practice. It needs mistakes. It needs patience. Just like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you think about everything, your balance, your hands, your feet. You're afraid of falling, but after enough practice, you stop thinking. You simply ride. And English is surprisingly similar. At first, you think about every word, every grammar rule, every pronunciation. But later, something changes. You begin to trust yourself. You answer faster. You hesitate less. You feel calmer. And one day, you suddenly realize, wait, I just answered in English, without translating, without panic, without fear. That moment feels magical, not because it happened overnight, but because of all the quiet days before it, all the little efforts, all the moments you kept going, even when you didn't believe in yourself. So today, I don't want to teach difficult grammar. I don't want to give you complicated theories. I just want to share simple ideas, real habits, tiny exercises, small changes that can slowly train your brain to think in English naturally. Because maybe you don't need to change your whole life. Maybe you only need one small habit, and then another, and another. And trust me, that's enough to begin. So, how can we actually train our brain to think in English? I think this is the question many learners ask. And honestly, the answer is much simpler than people expect. You don't start with difficult ideas. You don't start with politics. You don't start with philosophy. And please, don't start by asking yourself, what is the meaning of life? Because even in my own language, I'm not sure I know the answer. Instead, start with your real life, your room, your breakfast, your feelings, your daily routine. I know it sounds simple, maybe too simple, and that's exactly why it works. I remember when I first tried this, I woke up one morning and told myself, okay, today, I will think in English. I was excited for about 30 seconds. Then I looked around my room and thought, wait, how do I say this? And this? And this? Suddenly, everything seemed difficult. A small voice inside me whispered, see, you don't know enough English. But another voice answered, no, you don't need all the words. You only need the words you use every day. And I think that second voice was right. Because think about your normal morning. You wake up, you're tired, you drink water, you brush your teeth, you look for your phone, or your glasses, or your keys. Actually, where are my keys? I ask myself that question almost every day. Maybe you do too. And that's the point. These small moments are perfect opportunities to practice English. You can simply say, I'm tired. I need coffee. Where are my keys? I'm late. This coffee smells good. Short sentences, real situations. No pressure, no perfection, just English, connected directly to your life. And something interesting happens. At first, you have to think hard. You pause. You search for words. You make mistakes. But after repeating the same phrases many times, your brain becomes faster. Not because you're smarter, but because you're building habits. I love that word, habit, because habits change everything. A small habit can change your health. A small habit can change your relationships. And yes, a small habit can change your English. I used to think improvement needed big effort. Long study sessions, complicated books, perfect plans. But now, I believe in small things. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a tiny English moment every day. That's enough. Maybe your English moment happens while cooking. You can say, I'm cutting vegetables. The soup smells good. I think I added too much salt. Actually, I always add too much salt. I don't know why. Maybe cooking is just my way of creating surprises. Sometimes good surprises. Sometimes not so good. But even mistakes become practice, and that's beautiful. Maybe your English moment happens while walking. You look at the sky and think, it's cloudy today. The air feels nice. I'm feeling a little tired. Or maybe, I'm feeling hopeful. I like that word, hopeful, because language learning needs hope. There are days when you feel great, and there are days when you feel stuck. On those difficult days, a voice inside you may say, "You're not improving." I know that voice. I've heard it many times. But another voice quietly reminds me, "You are improving. You just can't see it yet." And honestly, that is often true. Progress is strange. It happens quietly. You don't notice it every day. But one day, someone asks you a question, and you answer immediately. No translation, no panic, just words. Natural words. And afterwards, you think, "Wait, did I just do that?" I love those moments because they remind us our brain is always learning, even when we don't realize it. Another thing that helped me a lot was learning to stop chasing perfect words. Oh, this was difficult because I wanted to sound smart. I wanted beautiful vocabulary, perfect grammar, elegant sentences. But real conversations aren't like that. Real conversations are messy. People pause. They forget words. They change sentences halfway through. And that's okay. Imagine this. You forget the word kettle. What do? A voice inside your head says, "Stop." You don't know the word, but another voice says, "Describe it." The thing I use to boil water. The machine for hot water. Maybe not perfect, but understandable. And communication is more important than perfection. I wish someone had told me this earlier, because for years I stayed silent. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was waiting for perfect English. And honestly, perfect English never arrived. But speaking did. Little by little, mistake by mistake, sentence by sentence. So now, when I forget a word, I don't panic. I explain, I describe, I keep talking, because silence is often a bigger problem than mistakes. I want to say that again. Silence is often a bigger problem than mistakes. A mistake teaches you something. Silence teaches you nothing. And maybe that's why children improve so quickly. They don't wait. They try. They laugh. They make mistakes. And then they try again. Adults are often more afraid. We want to be ready. We want to be confident. We want guarantees. But confidence is strange. I think confidence comes after action, not before. You speak first, then confidence grows, not the other way around. I know that's not always comfortable, but growth rarely is. Sometimes you have to sound awkward before sounding natural. You have to hesitate before speaking smoothly. You have to be a beginner before becoming confident. And honestly, there's something beautiful about being a beginner, because beginners are brave. They try, even when they're afraid. Maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're still translating. Maybe you still hesitate. Maybe speaking English feels uncomfortable. And that's okay, because today you only need one thing, one small habit, one tiny English moment. That's enough. And slowly, your brain will begin to change. Not dramatically, not overnight, but quietly, little by little, until one day, thinking in English no longer feels impossible. It simply feels natural. There is another habit, a very simple one, that changed the way I speak English. And honestly, I ignored it for a long time. Listening and repeating. Maybe you've heard of this before. Some people call it shadowing. The first time I heard that word, I thought, shadowing? That sounds mysterious, almost like becoming someone's shadow. And actually, that's exactly the idea. You listen carefully, and then you follow the speaker, word by word, sentence by sentence. Not perfectly, just closely. I remember trying shadowing for the first time. It was terrible, really terrible. The speaker was fast. I was slow. The speaker sounded natural. I sounded confused. Sometimes I missed half the sentence. Sometimes I stopped in the middle. And sometimes I just laughed at myself. A small voice inside me said, "See, you're terrible at this." But another voice answered, "Of course, it's your first day." And honestly, that answer changed everything. Because beginners are supposed to struggle. That's how learning works. So I kept going. 5 minutes a day. That's all. I listened. I repeated. I sounded strange. I repeated again. And then something surprising happened. My mouth became faster. My pronunciation became smoother. I stopped thinking about every sound. The sentences began to flow. Not perfectly, but naturally. And I realized something important. Speaking isn't only a mental skill, it's physical too. Your mouth needs practice. Your tongue needs practice. Your ears need practice. Your brain, your ears, and your mouth all need to learn together. That's why reading silently isn't enough. I know many learners love reading. I do too. You read an article, you understand everything. You feel smart, and then someone asks you to explain it aloud. Suddenly, your confidence disappears. Have you experienced this? I certainly have. A voice inside your head says, "But I understood everything." And another voice quietly answers, "Yes." But understanding and speaking are different skills. That was hard for me to accept, because I thought, if I know English, I should be able to speak. But speaking needs practice, real practice, with sound, with mistakes, with hesitation. That's why reading aloud can be so powerful. Not for an hour, not until your throat hurts. Just 5 minutes. Choose something simple. Read slowly. Listen to your own voice. Notice where you hesitate. Notice which words feel uncomfortable. Notice where you lose confidence. I like the word notice, because learning begins with noticing, not judging, not criticizing, just noticing. Oh, this word is difficult. Oh, I always pause here. Oh, this sentence feels natural. Small observations, tiny discoveries, and slowly those discoveries become improvement. Another habit I love is asking myself questions in English. Simple questions, nothing complicated. Questions like, how do I feel today? What do I want to eat? What am I doing this weekend? What made me happy today? At first, I answered with very short sentences. I'm tired. I want pizza. I'm staying home. Simple. Maybe even boring. But boring practice is often powerful practice because the goal isn't to impress anyone. The goal is to teach your brain how to answer quickly, how to think directly in English, without translation, without fear. And something beautiful happens. The questions become easier. The answers become longer. You stop forcing the language. You begin to trust it. I remember one evening, I was walking home. The sky was orange. The weather was cool. And suddenly, I realized I was thinking in English, not because I was studying, not because I was trying. It just happened. I looked at the sky and thought, it's a beautiful evening. That's all. Such a simple sentence. But I stopped walking because I realized I didn't translate. I didn't prepare. The thought appeared naturally. And honestly, that small moment made me happier than passing an exam. Because it proved something. Your brain can change. Slowly, quietly, but beautifully. Maybe that's happening to you already. Maybe you've had small moments like that. You hear a phrase and understand immediately. You answer a question without thinking too much. You remember a word exactly when you need it. Those moments matter. Celebrate them, even if they seem small, because confidence grows from small victories, not giant ones. And speaking of confidence, I think many people misunderstand it. They think, when I become confident, I'll start speaking. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think confidence comes after speaking, after mistakes, after awkward moments, after trying again and again. I know this because for a long time, I waited. I waited to feel ready. I waited to feel smart enough. I waited to stop being afraid. And honestly, I waited too long because fear doesn't disappear first. Action comes first. Then confidence follows. It's almost unfair, but that's how growth works. You take one small step, you survive, you take another, and slowly, the voice inside your head changes. At first it says, "What if you fail?" Later it says, "What if you succeed?" At first it says, "Your English isn't good enough." Later it whispers, "Actually, you're improving." And one day, you believe it. Not because someone told you, but because you've experienced it yourself, because you've spoken, you've struggled, you've continued, and now you trust yourself a little more. I think that's the real goal. Not perfect grammar, not a perfect accent, not speaking like a native speaker, but trusting yourself, trusting that even if you forget words, you'll find another way. Even if you make mistakes, you'll keep going. Even if you feel nervous, you'll speak anyway, because that's what confident people do. They're not fearless, they just keep moving, one sentence at a time. And maybe that's enough. Actually, I think it's more than enough, because sometimes one sentence can change everything. And that brings me to something important. A lot of people ask, "Okay, but what should I actually do?" That's a fair question, because motivation feels good, but habits create change. So today, I want to leave you with 3 simple habits. Nothing complicated, nothing overwhelming, just 3 small things you can start today. The first habit is called think out loud. Whenever you're alone, talk to yourself in English. Not full conversations, not perfect sentences, just simple thoughts. I'm making coffee. I'm feeling tired. I need to answer some emails. The weather looks nice today. That's it. Simple, natural, real. The goal is not perfect English. The goal is building a direct connection between your thoughts and the English language. The second habit is something I love, a 1-minute English journal. At the end of the day, open your phone or a notebook and write 3 sentences. Only 3. Maybe, today was busy. I felt stressed in the afternoon, but dinner was really good. That's enough. You don't need an essay. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You just need consistency, because every sentence teaches your brain how to organize thoughts in English. And over time, those small sentences become bigger ideas. The third habit might be the most powerful. Shadowing. Choose one sentence. Just one. Listen carefully. Then repeat it 5 times, not 50 sentences. 1 sentence. 5 repetitions. Tomorrow, choose another one. The next day, another one. Slowly, your pronunciation improves, your rhythm improves, and most importantly, your confidence improves. Because confidence doesn't grow from learning more rules. It grows from using what you already know. And honestly, that's something I wish I understood earlier. For years, I thought I needed more grammar, more vocabulary, more study. But what I really needed was more practice. Small practice, daily practice. The kind of practice that fits into real life while making breakfast, while walking outside, while sitting on a bus, while waiting in line somewhere. Tiny moments, tiny habits, tiny improvements. And one day, those tiny improvements become something bigger. You answer a question without translating. You tell a story without panic. You express a feeling without searching for every word. And suddenly, English feels different. Not easy, but familiar. Not perfect, but comfortable. And maybe that's what fluency really is. Not speaking without mistakes, but speaking without fear. I love that idea. Speaking without fear. Because language is not a test. It's a bridge between people, a bridge between ideas, a bridge between who you are and what you want to share with the world. So if you're listening right now, don't worry about becoming perfect. Don't worry about sounding impressive. Don't worry about speaking like someone else. Just keep showing up. One sentence today, another sentence tomorrow, and another after that. Because progress is often invisible while it's happening. But one day, you'll look back and you'll realize, as you've come much further than you thought. Maybe your English isn't changing today. Maybe it won't feel different tomorrow. But if you keep going, your brain will slowly adapt. Your confidence will slowly grow, and your voice will slowly become stronger. Until one day, you stop translating, you stop overthinking, and you simply speak. Not because you're fearless, but because you're ready. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourself. Keep practicing. Keep being patient with yourself. And remember, one sentence at a time is enough. I'll see you in the next episode.